Welcome everyone to the 164th edition of Opka Radio. I am Arun Jairam from the Boston chapter, and we welcome Sri Kishore Mandhyan from the Maharashtra chapter. He is the co-convener of AAP Maharashtra. He's also a former deputy director and political director of peacekeeping, human rights, and human affairs in the cabinet of the United Nations Secretary General. He has also been in the Boston area for many years as he was faculty in some of the leading colleges in the area. He also has many other accolades to his credit. And I won't take more time, but Kishore sir, please go ahead, introduce yourself, your background, your milestones, your achievements, and how your journey in up, how you join up, and how you're doing so far. After that, we'll throw the floor open to people to ask questions. Go ahead, sir, Kishore.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'll respond to your question at two levels. First of all, the overall journey, and then the journey within AAP. I would say that I came from a refugee family to India from Pakistan. I was born and brought up, of course, in Bombay. And I studied in Bombay. I did my science studies here at Jain College, and then subsequently my law school at the University of Bombay. I then took the IAS examinations and joined the government of India at the central level for about 5 years, and I ran the post telegraph and telephone divisions of Maharashtra in the region of Bombay and Thane and Palghar and Kalyan. I did that for a few years. I was confronted as a young civil servant with the emergency where I was asked to do some certain things which were not palatable. So I decided at that point of time to make a shift and take a break because I didn't accept the emergency. So I decided to do my graduate work in Boston, which I did for a while at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy in International Relations and Comparative Politics. And after that, I worked with the World Bank and some U.S. government agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency and the Argonne National Laboratory. But then I got a sense to again come back to India and put my hand in politics because I was General Secretary of Bombay Students' Union when I was at the university. Subsequently, I was with the government of India involved with governance. And then subsequently, I felt that I really wanted to do something back home. So I did come back and I joined Chandrashekhar, who later became Prime Minister several years later, walking across with him in the country and got involved with some agricultural movements, the Shetkari Sangatna and the environmental movements of Chipko Andolan. I was also involved with writing the urban plan in response to the municipal development plan in 1983-84, I think, yes, which covered a 20-year period. So it was a master plan, and it was the first environmental plan which was a citizens' plan which rebutted the municipal development plan. But the Padyatra kind of disappointed me at that point of time, and I felt that I'm not sure that this would really lead to any major change. I decided to come back to the United States, and I started teaching at Tufts. I was a teaching fellow at Harvard in international relations and comparative politics, my traditional subjects, issues of foreign policy, and subsequently I went to Boston College where I spent a large amount of my time. And around 1992, I felt that I'd been enough in academia. I'd seen local government, I'd seen national government, I'd seen NGOs. There was time to do something more global. So I joined the United Nations in the peacekeeping arena. And that took me to various places, first and foremost in Europe, at the in peacekeeping operations in the ex-Yugoslavia, and subsequently when ex-Yugoslavia began to disintegrate, to Bosnia, to Croatia, to Montenegro, to Serbia and Kosovo. Thereafter, I moved to Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, the Middle East, and the Gulf. And then around 2007, 2008, I was in the Secretary General's office as the Deputy Director for Peacekeeping, Humanitarian and Human Rights, and the Political Director in the Cabinet. And over there, I held a broad range of portfolios to the International Parliamentary Union, on peace building, on human security, on anti-piracy operations, on the implementation of the responsibility to protect, and various other regional portfolios related to North Africa, the Horn of Africa, South Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, and off and on Southeast Asia. So I've spent a considerable amount of my time outside India, almost 30 years. But I used to come and go, and I used to get snapshots of India. And I felt that I'd given it 2 tries earlier, once while I was working in government here, and second is when I'd come back from the World Bank and I got involved in the Padyatra. I said, let me give it a 3rd try, because we had been away from family for a while, and my wife's mother was here, and my mother was here. They were in their 80s and 90s, and we felt we had 3 mothers to serve, 2 of our mothers and Mother India. So I must give it a try again, and if I live to be 100 years, then I can say that I've spent 30, 40 years consistently over here. So that's what brought me back. And the reason I came to the Aam Admi Party, although many colleagues and friends said, Kishore, you must come to the Congress or the BJP, but I must say that dynasty does not appeal to me, and nor does Hindutva appeal to me. And the only value system which was consistent with my value system of what I did at the university, in the NGOs, in the government of India, and in international organizations was what I found in the projected value system of the Aam Admi Party and the politics of the Aam Admi Party. And that's what brought me to the Aam Admi Party in 2013, and I've been with it ever since. And that has taken me through a journey all across India, in the campaigns in Delhi, Punjab, in the Karnataka, in Goa, in Maharashtra, and in various thematic roles on the committees for political education and training, on questions of fundraising, on questions of doing party organization, both at the state level and at the city level. And right now, one is at the state level with a very nice team, and we are looking forward to the challenges that lie ahead of us in Maharashtra. So I'll stop there, and I hope that has been sufficient to give you a background of where I was coming from and where I am at the moment.
Great. Thank you, sir. Please go ahead. Whoever has any question, go ahead.
So my name is Mansi, and I'm a student at University of Michigan. So you seem to have like the best of all worlds. Like you got to serve the country, then you got to come to US, teach, and then go back to our country. So like first question, how has your experience been, going back to our country and joining politics of all things? Because from what I've read and from what we've seen, it's not easy for an academician or, someone who's on the administrative side of things to come back and join Indian politics. So how has your experience been so far?
I think my experience has been wonderful for the simple reason that I think very early on, because I was making a shift, my background was in physics and chemistry, so area of rocket science, and I subsequently moved to international relations and political science. And I began to realize that political science, politics, is far more difficult than rocket science. So psychologically, I was prepared for the shift. Now, I had always been engaged with a lot of reading around politics and diplomacy, even in school, and subsequently when I ran for elections in college. So I got to know the street pretty well in Bombay. It was not new to me. And then when I got involved with Government of India through the competitive examination, through governance also you do learn a lot about politics, because it took me to the rural areas of Maharashtra for the training programs at Mussoorie, the National Academy of Administration, where I met a lot of people who are today bureaucrats in powerful positions who were my colleagues then. And subsequently, I was in different districts of Maharashtra. It was Jalgaon, it was Dhulia, it was Nagpur. I was in the north in Saranpur. I was in Baroda. So I had pretty much seen a lot of India before I left India. And once, of course, when I came to America, I was working at the World Bank, which gives you an insight into the different countries of the world from an economic perspective. And subsequently, I taught international relations, politics, and environmental policy. So that also gave me a very good grounding on various issues which were from an international perspective. And I was also, while I was in the United States, I was quite involved in the campaigns of Jerry Brown, who was the governor of California, Mario Cuomo, the father of Andrew Cuomo, the Clinton campaigns, which came later, but my daughters were involved with it, when they were very, very little. So I was constantly in touch with politics, and I would come and go. As I mentioned, in 83, 84, I came here, and I was involved with the Padyatra, and we would come to see our parents. So I was engaged with India, both in terms of teaching, in terms of thinking, and in terms of being in contact with different people I had been involved with in my earlier life. Now, when I joined the United Nations, I was right on top of the United Nations. So there were 194 countries with which I was involved on behalf of the Secretary General. But when I was posted in the field, we had very different kind of mandates. In Yugoslavia, we had a mandate initially to carry out humanitarian assistance and protection of civilians and rape victims and women. Subsequently, it became monitoring ceasefires. Then it became getting economic agreements and trying to put a broken state together in state building and nation building. And thereafter, we had to deal with war criminals and get them to the Hague for trials on account of gross human rights violations and implementing the Genocide Convention and other kinds of things. So you are constantly in touch with society. It's like a doctor who is in touch with patients all across the world who might have a heart disease or might have diabetes. It doesn't matter whether they are Indian or they are Australian or they are Canadian or African, because the disease is the same. So in the same way, I was in the intensive care unit of the world to the United Nations. And when I came back to India, I confront the same kind of issues. Now, of course, there are cultural differences, but because I was coming and going and I was involved with it over different time periods, the transition was not that difficult because I had a fair amount of understanding of what to expect. And since I traveled a lot in a lot of countries across the world, excuse me, and in India also, almost every state, and I researched about it. So I think I had a fair amount of sense as to what the political culture of different states is, what to expect, what not to expect, and what are the class differences, what are the caste differences, how does leadership work. And I just didn't walk into it. I traveled a lot in India when I came back finally. I got into a car and I drove across the country, and I keep doing it all the time. And you do it both in the main streets of India, and you also do it on in the country roads, and you engage on the ground level. So you get out of the bubble that you are when you are an NRI, or when you're in the United States or Europe, or when you're a senior official in the United Nations, and you come down to the ground and the earth. So yes, it was a transition. It remains a transition. You keep learning, but I don't think it was really a challenge.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Next question?
Yeah, it's Vishnu. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Vishnu.
Hi, I'm Vishnu from I live in Los Angeles. My question
hi, Vishnu. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much first of all for joining us. It's a great opportunity for us to interact with somebody like you. So it seems like you had two big interactions with politics, one with Chandrashekhar and one with Aam Adam Party. So it's a different phases of your life, right? What changed? So you got disillusioned with Chandrasekhar's Padyatra movement and you left, and then you came back. So is this something that changed, which brought you back, or did you change, or the situation changed? What exactly drew you back in?
I would say, I'm a student of politics, and then I was trying to experience politics on the ground. So I was sandwiching between thought and action, or at least I tried to. And I pretty much gauged very early on in the 70s, and I'll be very honest about it, that the paradigm within which this country was operating under the Congress was quite flawed. And when I joined Chandrashekhar, I think he was trying to correct that paradigm by emphasizing rural mobilization against the urban sector, because he felt that the urban sector was being subsidized by the rural countryside. There's a whole concept of terms of trade between rural and urban areas, why that is necessary, why unbalanced growth is necessary. We can't get into it now, but I thought that he was trying to correct it. So I think conceptually, I felt he was in the right direction. On the other hand, I got the feeling when I walked with a lot of people that I didn't see them very different from the kind of people who were there in the Congress. I got the feeling that it was people who were left out of the Congress were the opposition. But the rank and file did not really have a very different operational perspective. I saw the potential for corruption. I saw the potential for petty ambitions being realized in petty manners. And therefore, I was a bit disillusioned and disappointed. And I said, perhaps this is not for me. I must go to New England and basically sit back. And maybe the calling for me is to teach and just impart whatever I learn and share it with young people. And maybe their time will come and they'll do something which I think is more useful than what I could do. So that was the Chandrashekhar experience. The Aam Admi Party experience, many years later, almost a generation later, and a bit more, is a bit different. I think in some ways India had become, after liberalization, relatively more prosperous, but it had also become more unequal, both economically unequal and therefore politically unequal, and that inequality is widening and it shows all across the country. I felt that despite a lot of money being put the infrastructure, and I've traveled a lot across the world and we mainly drive and go by sea, is one of the worst infrastructures in the world. The human infrastructure, particularly in the arena of education and health, is appalling. Yes, there are some very good hospitals and there are some excellent schools, but that is not India. That is where the elite goes. And the elite in India also is a very small, minuscule elite, and it is an extremely shallow elite. They are completely divorced from this society. So I saw that it hadn't really moved on, and in many ways it had got worse. But what I found surprising when I came back was that the rhetoric, the polemics, that how great we are and how great we can become, but our actual action on the ground, the gap was very, very wide. See, when you go to Africa, they don't say that we come from a great civilization. They say we come from the bush. But they have the same aspirations as any other people. And the gap between their rhetoric and performance is less compared to the gap between India's aspirations and performance on the ground. So that is the context in which I came to the Aam Admi Party. And I've been pleasantly surprised that Arvind Kejriwal has been able to show that change is possible in India. And Delhi is a showcase. Granted, it is a limited place in terms of size, and there will be questions of scaling it up and transferring that experience to other states as and when we get opportunities. But I found very committed people, willing to give a lot of themselves. I have now worked with these people for 5 to 6 years on the ground. One of the finest people intellectually and also in terms of the loyalty that they feel for the country and they feel for the party. So I think there is a new generation which has emerged. I don't think it's very large, but it is there and it can be mobilized. And I think that's the challenge before the Aam Admi Party in a comparative sense from the early 80s to the first decade of the 21st century.
You alluded to this earlier in the previous answer, but there's a lot of focus in Indian politics and Indian society about how great a civilization we used to be. So even politicians tap into this and they keep talking about yesterday, how great things were yesterday. And they don't spend enough time talking about how great your life can be tomorrow or how the problems of today. Why that exists in Indian society more than other societies that I've seen in other countries? They don't focus as much of how great things were, and they focus more on how to solve problems for tomorrow. Why is there so much emphasis which people can tap into about yesterday so much?
I got it. First of all, I would say that there are a lot of things to commend about the history of India. There's no question about it. The question is, as you were pointing out, the obsession with the past. And this obsession then becomes a substitute for achievements of the present, which, frankly, it's only been 70 years since independence. In some ways, that is a long period of time. In some ways, during the 70 years, some things have concretely changed for the better. There is no doubt about it. I'll just give you very small examples. But at the same time, as things get better and you move from survival or subsistence to a security-oriented middle-class society, although we are at the low end of that spectrum, you are not accomplishing the grand aspirations that you have created for yourself. So they do think in terms of the future. They want to probe to the Mars. They want to get to the moon. They want to do all kinds of things on the ground. And I think that energy is there amongst a lot of the young people. There is no doubt about it. But on the other hand, one does not see a sense of excellence for which the potential exists being harnessed by good governance and engagement between the political class and the general rank and file of a very talented society. Let me give you two or three examples. I think India, despite being the most corrupt society, and there's a contradiction there, one of the most, and the figures of Transparency International tell you that. On the other hand, it's probably one of the most honest places in the world. Now, the corruption exists at the upper end of our society. The honesty exists across our society. Now we have had a COVID situation. Okay, I'll just give you a very personal, home-based example. We have a driver, we ask him not to come, we'll pay him full salary, our maid, our cook, or whatever. You know, we get calls from them every day. For 6 months, they've been receiving their salary straight into their account. And they say, do you know, sir, we can't bear the fact that I'm getting money without earning it. I can't sit at home and I want to come. I said, first of all, you can't come. Secondly, if you come, I'll probably infect you or you will infect me. So stay at home, your salary is guaranteed. I don't think there are many places in the world where people call you and say, I don't feel good of just receiving money and not being able to come. That's one thing. Let me give you another example. I go to Kala Ghoda, which is one of the central places in Bombay. And there is a little boy who comes to me. I'm talking about the year 2014 when Meera Sanyal was running on behalf of AAP for the parliamentary election, and I was campaigning for her. A boy came to me. It was hot. It was April. The asphalt was burning. He didn't have shoes, and he had a piece of cloth in one hand, and he had a little box in the other hand with a shoe polish. And he said, can I polish your shoes? I said, my shoes are polished. They're brand new, and I've got to run. He said, sir, please, I haven't eaten for 2 days. It's only $2. I said, but I've polished my shoes, and I have to run. He said, sir, please, just $2. So I had a $100 note in my left-hand pocket, in my shirt. And I gave him the $100 and I said, please go and eat. He said, no, I will not accept your money unless I earn it by polishing your shoe. I was astounded. Now, I had many experiences like that across India. This is not an exceptional situation. And I've had similar experiences across America also. So don't let me say that India is worse and America is better, or America is worse and India is better. What I want to say is that the core population of common people across the world is generally very honest. Now, when he polished my shoes, I allowed him to do so. I said, okay, now take the $100 and go and eat. He said, sir, it's only $2. I have to give you 98 rupees back. So those of you who know Kala Ghoda, he ran to Tiger restaurant. There's a pan wala there. He got the change and he came to give me 98 rupees back. And I said, what's the matter with you? Just go, eat. I will come here 25 to 50 times to get polishes worth 2 rupees each. Don't worry about it. He said, no, I can't take something which I have not earned. Now think the NBAs across the world. Think of all the NBAs across the world who feel very happy when their boss gives them a bonus at the end of the year, or who don't feel very happy when they don't get a slight promotion. And they curse and they bitch. But here there was a boy who had those shoes, whose feet were burning, who hadn't eaten, and who was not willing to take money unless he had earned it. Now that tells you the quality of the Indian population. And Arvind Kejriwal has shown that when you work with such people and you give them a sense of dignity, then anything is possible. The Delhi schools now, as you well know, I don't have to repeat it, are doing better than many private schools in CBSE board examinations. They are cracking joint entrance examinations at a higher rate. They have dealt with COVID in such a professional manner that they've become an example not only for India but also for the rest of the world. Yes, there have been difficulties, but they've managed, the tricky politics of it. They've managed the constraint on resources, and most of them are able to mobilize the population. That's the situation.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can you give us a little idea about the Maharashtra situation, where AAP stands, what are our plans forward, what's coming up, and how we plan to tackle the problems?
Look, in the overall context, there are about 28 states and 2 or 3 union territories in India. Initially, the approach was top-down. You will run for parliamentary elections, you will run for state elections, you will run for local elections. I think our experience has now brought us is that you run for any election where you're prepared for it, you have resources, and you have an organization on the ground. So we've tried this, as you well know, in several states. And Maharashtra is one of the largest states. It's probably as much as the size of France. It's got a population twice as much, and it has 6 regions. So it's a very complex state also. We've had a go at it before in the parliamentary elections of 2014. We didn't get a seat, but I think in some very specific constituencies, our candidates did reasonably well. We got a fair amount of vote share at the bottom end, but it was a good start. Subsequently, we tried to run some seats here and there. We never really made it, but we ran for the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly election last year, 24 seats, 3 or 4 seats in each region. And in 3 or 4 seats, we did surprisingly well. In most others, we did not do well and we lost deposits. Now, in the foreseeable future, we are expecting to run. P.T. Sharma Menon, our national spokesperson, is leading the charge in Navi Mumbai. She's also leading the charge for the Bombay Municipal Corporation elections, which are to be held in 2022. We are planning to run in Kolhapur and Aurangabad, and I think Kalyan, Dombivli, in different parts of Maharashtra. But basically, we are pretending to run anywhere in Maharashtra at any level, from the Gram Panchayat to the Zilla Parishads, to the legislative assemblies, the various local authorities, and then also, of course, preparing for the big one, which is the BMC, as I mentioned earlier, and the Maharashtra state election in 2024, and subsequently, along with it, the parliamentary election which will come along. I think we've learned our lesson as to how to organize, what kind of resources do we need, how to go about the selection of candidates. I think Delhi now has very good experience and works as a guardian to guide us in these areas. But I think we have to rely on ourselves. I think Arvind wants each region to stand on its own. And that's very important. Because the stronger the ground is, the stronger any future national government of AAP will be. It cannot be the other way around. So we are engaged in this, and our constraints at the moment are money, which is very important because we don't do it the wrong way. We have to tighten our organization. That is important. We have to develop a leadership which is more authentic from Maharashtra. I think these are the three main constraints. We have to develop a women's wing, which is important, which is underdeveloped at the moment. We need to develop the various other wings. For example, the youth wing, the student wing. We have the process of building those structures, the transport wing, and legal cells, etc. So there is a systematic organization building going on. It could be more systematic, and I think we need to put our shoulder to the wheel and continue to do this systematically. This is a long-term project. It's not a flirtation. It's not a crush. This is not a one-night. This is a long engagement. It's a marriage.
So we have some elections coming up in the local bodies. Where do we? What do you have to share with us on that?
The local body elections in Maharashtra, you mean?
Yeah.
Navi Mumbai is one place where I mentioned Preeti Sharma Menon is trying to she has actually put a team together, and she's now trying to push it because of COVID. The elections got postponed. They were supposed to be held last April, I believe, and they got postponed. I think they probably will be held in February. And she's an excellent colleague, and she is very solid, and I think that will be a good experience as a precursor to the Mumbai Municipal Corporation election. The Aurangabad election is spearheaded by Dr. Subhash Mane, a former Maratha IAS officer, and he's trying to put a team together. You have the usual problems of factionalism, lack of resources, and slightly different approaches by the people who are members over there of the party. But I think we'll be able to put up a good show, and we'll see what percentage of the vote share we get. I think we'll be very happy if we can announce through any one of these elections, whether it is here or whether it is Navi Mumbai or Mumbai Municipal Corporation, or for that matter, Kalyan, Dombivli and Kolhapur, which are the other two places. Sandeep Desai in Kolhapur and in Kalyan, Dombivli, Ruben Mascarenas is also helping out to put a team together over there. If we get few people in each of these, hopefully many more, we can say Aam Admi Party opens innings in India. In Maharashtra, forgive me. Aam Admi Party opens account in Maharashtra. When that happens in the largest state of India, there will be an echo all across India, because then people will begin to think, oh, it's there in Punjab, it's there in Western UP in the local body, it is there in Delhi for 3 times, it's created a model. It's fighting in Goa, it's fighting in Uttarakhand, and maybe in the biggest states, like Maharashtra, in terms of population, we have opened our account. And that will have implications for other states, because people will begin to perceive that the footprint of the Aam Admi Party, or the ink blot of the Aam Party, is gradually spreading. And so that's what we have on the cards immediately. Different strategies will have to be worked out for different places. Different kind of alliances, if necessary, may have to be chalked up. But at the moment, we are going into these elections as a solo party to establish our footprint. We have a brand recognition all across. We have a name recognition all across. Arvind Kejriwal's work is now more or less known through social media across all parts of the country, though we need to keep fortifying that. But most importantly, we need to build an organization. And I normally use the analogy, since I sail, of a boat. You have to build a good boat. You have to get the right sailors, the right crew. You've got to have a good leadership, the pilot and the navigator. You have to put your sails up, or you've got to keep your sails ready. So when the wind comes, when the waves come, when the tide comes, you are ready. And that we have to do very, very strongly, because if we don't do it when the wave will come, we will not be able to move. So that is our concern, that is our obsession, and for that we need money and resources. So anything that you guys can help to put that together will be very useful. A lot of people from abroad had helped the Aam Adami Party in 2014, 2015. And I think we need to tighten our organization abroad to complement the efforts over here. But I think, of course, very carefully so, because foreign contributions can only be had from people who are not citizens of America or NRI or any other country. So I think there needs to be a very comprehensive effort, not only with regard to Maharashtra, but other places. The other point is that I was mentioning to Arun in our conversation yesterday, that we need to counter the propaganda against the Aam Adami Party, which is taking place abroad by the BJP and the Congress. And it is very important that that our young people over there who are unaffiliated to be able to get that message across of what really is happening in India and how the progressive forces are fighting it. Because our news media are extremely distorted, and we need to sort of set that right. So I think that's what's on the cards for Maharashtra and its implications for the rest of India and what it means for the rest of us who are outside India.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Any questions?
Sir, my question is, if everything is perfect and in Maharashtra or even in India for the elections, and you get to do like three things that you want to win the elections to any of the next election, what are the three things in a more holistic view that you think that you and the other volunteers will need in India and Maharashtra to win the elections?
I think the things which are intrinsic to the organization are the following three. First and foremost, a solid leadership. Second, and we are trying to do that, but we have some ways to go. Second is a solid message. Now, we had written a manifesto last year, which can be shared with you all, on re-engineering Maharashtra, and we have to get that message across. The third is resources, which can then build an organization. You don't only need resources for an election, like a small cap fund or a startup. You need working capital between elections to establish offices, to pay salaries. We don't take bribes from anybody. We don't go to corporates. Arvind Kejriwal is against it. If they come to us, we welcome it. And these are open, transparent transactions. We try to crowdsource. And that is a challenge, but we are still trying, and we will go some ways in it because there are people seriously working to create very sophisticated platforms. But that's the medium term. For the moment, the resources are essential. So all of these few things which I mentioned, message, leadership, resources which can build an organization are critical. Okay? Now, there are external things which are not in our hands. When will the waves come? That depends on national and world politics. To what extent, how will the opposition behave? Should we go with them or not? That is not in our hands. It's beyond my paycheck. The national leadership, I'm sure, has considered a lot of these scenarios. So I prefer not to talk about it because simply I don't know much about it.
Yeah, this is Ravi.
Ravi, go ahead.
Thank you. So my question is that, you alluded to something like propaganda against AAP in overseas, like in America, yes. Going on by other parties. Can you provide some details on that? I mean, we are trying to organize here our effort, and what kind of propaganda are they are running, and how can we counter that? Do you have any suggestions, examples, or anything else?
Look, our contestants in the United States of America, most of you will probably not be familiar, but since I spent a lot of time there, I was president of the South Asian Society, then I was with the UN, and I was interacting with both the Indian diaspora and with whom they interact. What I saw was that the BJP and the Congress had fairly well-organized systems and networks on the ground across North America. I'm talking about the United States of America. Some of it extends into Canada, but I'm talking about the United States. So, for example, the presidents of the Bajrang Dal, the Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, they would attend functions of Aam Admi Party, which I heard later, and or the Congress for that matter, and try to disrupt them. One. Number two is that, as you well know, that there is no pan-Indian institution in America except for fundraising purposes. Okay? Some who are with the Democratic Party and some who are with the Republican Party. There's no real pan-American organization in America, pan-Indian organization in America, except for fundraising purposes, and they're aligned either to the Democrats or the Republicans.
Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, we are trying.
It's very important. It's very important to develop a progressive pan-Indian institution. Whether it's affiliated to AAP or not is irrelevant, but one which stands for cosmopolitan, secular, and progressive values. So that is the most important thing to do. How do you do it? There are various ways to do it. A lot of social interaction in India in America is fragmented. People meet as Sindhis, they meet as Tamils, they meet as Andhra people, they meet as Tamilians, they meet as Keralites, they meet as Maharashtrians, but they rarely meet as Indians over there, except at the university level and occasionally in certain functional organizations which are linked to your profession, whether it is medicine or whether it is law. But most social interaction is highly fragmented. So I think it's important to bring these groups, or at least the progressive elements amongst them, into a larger formation. Number three, I used to run a radio station in Boston called Almanac FM 91.5. It was a cultural show. It was targeted at all recent people who had come to America from the 9 countries of South Asia, from Afghanistan to Myanmar, from Nepal to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, including India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. And the idea was to share each other's music, to give a platform to children from these communities so they can share the joy of coming from one place, one subcontinent, regardless of the fact that they were from different countries. So you don't make it explicitly political, you make it cultural. But what that will do is, sooner or later, you will start talking about real issues. And that brings people together. So there are, get hold of a FM radio station from the university, which does not cost. Or now you have more sophisticated technologies, and start connecting these communities across the major centers, whether there are Indian diaspora, whether it's Texas, whether it is Ohio, whether it's Colorado, whether it is California, whether it is Massachusetts, Washington, D.C., New York, and other places. So that's another thing that can be done. You can start a newsletter. Now there are Indian newspapers over there which are published, I believe, if I'm right, called India Abroad, and there are one or two others. Is to start writing articles on that, on your perceptions about what is happening in India. And don't be afraid to be critical of even Aam Admi Party if you don't think. So I think, but what you should try to do is provide a very balanced perspective of the achievements of the Aam Admi Party. Whenever there is somebody traveling from the Aam Admi Party to America, you should have full knowledge of who or she is, and see that they engage with the local community. Organizing a tea, organizing a dinner, maybe sometimes with key people in that community, sometimes with a larger group. So that's another thing that can be done. I'm just pointing to a few things. If one sat down and brainstormed, I'm sure we could come up with a systematic approach. And today it is easier because it's much more simple, different states and so on and so forth. So I think some thinking should be done in that direction, and then mobilizing resources along with it as we go along.
Okay. Yeah. I think. Yeah. We are. And just to update you, sir, we are trying to organize here, and your idea about the FM radio is kind of looking lucrative. Maybe newsletter, but definitely we are trying to organize to collect our resources and to see how we can do better in America. But we might come back to you to get more directions from you. But definitely we are trying to organize here.
Sir, what is your suggestion if someone from overseas wants to come on the ground and work for the Aam Admi Party?
I think it's a wonderful idea. With the kind of ideas, the fresh approach, the passion which I think a lot of people brought, for which I think Arvind and his team are eternally grateful. And I think when people like yourselves come here, it's a tremendous gesture because, one, you're giving up good quality time to come here. Two, you're giving back to your community. Three is you can bring resources. Resources is not only money, it's your talent. And some of you are top-notch experts in each of your fields. And if you're getting knowledge at the cutting edge, made available to the Aam Admi Party, what can one say? It's a wonderful thing to do. It's a wonderful thing to do. In fact, I was talking to Arun yesterday as we were preparing for this session. I mentioned to him that one of the things you should think of is it's a nice way to spend 2 weeks or 1 month or even 3 months in India whenever there is an election, is think of the place where you grew up and go and connect with an Aam Admi Party candidate, provided you respect him. Don't just do it for anyone. Okay? You shouldn't be wasting your time. If you feel that this candidate is open, is on the ball, and you can get that through 2 or 3 meetings and asking a few questions here or there, give him everything that you can. Connect him to your networks or her in many instances, and let them win and fight to win. You will learn a lot about India. You will learn a lot about politics. You will learn a lot about the party, and you will also get excited, and you will even start participating very actively, for those of you who don't, in the Democratic elections or the Republican Party in America, or for that matter, third parties, whether it's the Green Party of America or Ralph Nader or the Bernie Sanders option or similar people as and when they come up. I think if you're interested in politics, whether you do it here or you do it there, the principles, again, are the same. But you're coming here and doing it, I think you will have open arms, and only you should see that you're not abused. And one can be abused anywhere, that your time is used well over here. That's what I would say.
We feel that the Aam Admi Party is having challenges in organization building. Do you feel the same? And if you do, how can we tackle this issue?
Organizations have 4 dimensions to them. Number 1, structure. Number 2, process. Number 3 is operations, macro operations and micro operations. And number 4 is marketing, PR, outreach, and then the overall coordination of all these 4 elements to bring it together towards a particular stated goal. So I would say that you can always have strategy. Everybody talks about strategy. But if you don't have any 4 of these elements, then your strategy is useless. So very often people ask me, do you have a strategy? To some extent you always do with whatever resources you have. But then the question is, that can you really have a strategy with a big S if you don't have a minimal critical mass of each of those 4 elements? So with regard to the first aspect of structure, you need people. You need good people. You need a balanced representation of men, women, young and old. And that's how we try to do it. But in politics, you can't choose your cards. You have to work with the cards that you're dealt with. You have to develop a leadership that has to be trained. But a political party, when it begins, and it comes out of a movement, it is walking on two legs. One, as a party, which is an interface between state and society. And second, it's a movement which throws up ideas and begins to mobilize people. And there's a diversity of people who come. And in the case of the Aam Adam Party, they come across also, they come from different social spectrums, largely urban, but gradually more rural, upper class, middle class, and the low-income groups. We don't have any discrimination or preference between one caste or another, one community or another. So you have to create an environment which is acceptable to all of these people and they feel comfortable over here. So that is the personnel side of it. You obviously need money, and which is in short supply. You need to keep away from the old politics where you don't have gundas in your party. You work on the basis of a program. You work on the basis of principles. You work, of course, very, very cleverly. No doubt, Arvind has shown it, that you can be very clever and you can outwit people. Manish has shown it. Satyendra Jain has shown it, that you can actually outwit people. You don't have to play the game of the others. You can bypass it. But for that, you need coherence. You need confidence. You need to be alert. And of course, challenges will come, but you've got to keep a steady faith, a steady approach. So for that, you need a culture. And that culture is not easy to develop. Even corporations are not able to develop that culture. Even universities are not able to develop that culture with the billions of dollars that they have. So these are challenges, but they're also opportunities. So these are different organizational elements, as I mentioned. Structure, process, techniques, and culture. And within culture, outreach. The innovative use of conventional media and social media. Most importantly, the best product and the best delivery takes place when it's word of mouth and you're on the street, rather than only being a social media warrior. So meeting people, explaining to them the vision and the achievements and the difficulties, all of these are very important elements of organization building. Have I made myself clear?
Yes. So thank you, sir. Any other questions, anyone?
Sir, how is your experience working with people like Durgesh Padak? He's in his 20s, late 20s, I guess, and you are much more senior to him. So how do you feel working with people like the younger to you?
Look, it is the outcomes that matter. Durgesh is a very sharp, bright. He learns very fast. So first of all, you are able to respect the intelligence of a human being. You should never look at a human being, whether he is young or old, or it is a woman or a man. When you see the commitment of a person who's giving all his time, when he could be doing a PhD or an MBA or be with a corporate, and he's giving his time to a party which doesn't have any promise of power today, that is the first qualification of an individual. That is it's his commitment. So I respect that commitment. I think all of us do. Two, he's extremely sharp. He's quick on the uptake. Now he's got a lot of experience at a very young age. In Punjab, he went to Stanford in the middle. He came back, and he has the confidence of the leadership. So, as far as I'm concerned, you can learn from anyone. The moment you make yourself zero, you can become infinity. But if you say, I am 7, 9, 11, and you mark yourself, then I don't think you will ever progress in life. So I enjoy the fact that I learned from somebody who's far younger to me. And in the United Nations, for example, when I was representing the Secretary General, I would meet presidents and prime ministers, from the Chinese president to the French prime minister to heads of other international institutions, whether they're the World Bank or elsewhere. I don't think they ever posed the question that is Kishore younger to me, older to me? Am I more qualified than him? Or this? I think, if you look at the United States, in many ways, it's a phenomenal society. If you remember Jimmy Carter's budget director, David Stockman, he was a theologian. I think he was barely 33, 34. And he was the budget director. Massive billion-dollar budgets. In the UN, some of my best officers knew much more than me and guided me. And as a result, I could perform well because of them. And because I kept an open house and created an open culture, that I was able to reach the office of the Secretary General. Because the moment anybody thinks that this person is younger to me or hasn't gone to an Ivy League institution, I think you're restricting the flow of knowledge. You're restricting the flow of experience. And that's not good for the society. That's not good for the organization. And it's not even good for you, because every human being who touches you is a god. I don't go to mandirs. I don't go to mosques. I don't go to churches. For me, Shiva, Muhammad, everybody is the same. But most of all, when I touch a flower, I feel it blesses me. When Durgesh touches me, he blesses me. When you touch me, you bless me. So you are my gods. I think if you have that attitude, it can only lead you to do the right thing and not come in anybody's way, and let that person help you to get where you want to go.
My name is Mansi. This is outside of AAP, like the question that I'm asking. You've had a wonderful experience. You've had like a fulfilling life, so to speak. Like, I read about what you've done and the places you've gone and everything. So it's really amazing. So one thing you would like to leave us all with, about how, like, something inspiring, how you lead your life, how do you do the work that you want to do, and how have you been able to achieve all these?
I think that's a whole huge panoply of questions which I would love to share. But I can tell you this much. If you have a few minutes, I would love to share it with you. See, at a very young age, I met just very good people, and they came from so many different directions. Just, in the answer to the previous question, I said the moment you keep yourself open, right? The moment you keep yourself open, inspiration comes to you from many different directions. And when you keep yourself open, you become lucky. When you keep yourself closed, you become unlucky. You're full of fears, you're full of hatred, you're full of envy, and you're full of anger. You may not always display it. Now, I can tell you that I've driven virtually all over the world, and in America, when I was in graduate school, I was driven. I had a little daughter then, and my wife with me, so I went to graduate school as a mid-career person. And one of the first things that I did, and instead of doing my graduate program in 3 or 4 years, I took 7 years to do it. And I decided, although I had worked with the government of India as a Class 1 gazetted officer, to deliver Domino's pizzas, to become a security guard, to drive taxis, and all of that, because I wanted a blue-collar experience. Okay? And so we got a cheap car for $200. We drove across every national park in our first summer. We did the same in Canada, then in Mexico, and in Central America. And there was this thing that you cannot be a full human being by just sitting in the library. You have to step out. So you have to make yourself open, and you have to take a conscious step to take a backpack and meet people and see the world. The earlier you see the world, the earlier you see the UNESCO World Heritage Sites of America, of India, of every other country, you realize what a fascinating world this is. You also realize that people are good all over. I can tell you, I never faced a day of prejudice in America, nor has my family. It feels like home to me, even away from here. So, although I know prejudice exists, people receive us with their open arms. Political parties. I applied for the top level jobs. It's very difficult to get jobs in the Boston area in teaching because there are top people coming out from MIT and Harvard and Yale and Cornell. But I think when you're open and you've done the hard work, because I think brilliance only comes with hard work. Nobody is gifted. So you have to, if you're supposed to read one book, read 3 books for that course. Don't do cut and paste. In my class, when I used to teach, I used to ask students, how many hours of television do you see in a day? And they used to say 2 hours or 1 hour. I said over the weekends, they would say about 2 hours, 3 hours each day, Saturday and Sunday. So I said, add it up. Each week, that means you're seeing at least 10 hours. That means in a month, you're saying 40 hours, correct? So if in a month you're spending 40 to 50 hours, and given that 8 hours is one good day of work, that means a week in a month you're devoting to television, sitting in front of the idiot box. If you take that for 12 months, 12 weeks, that is 3 months. If you take that over a lifetime of about 30, 40 years of working, it's 120 months. You divide it by 10, that is 12 years of your life have gone in front of the idiot box. Today you add social media to it. That means half your life, your working life, goes into that, for which could have been used to learn a great language, whether it is Chinese or Swahili. To read books, I mean, Bill Gates reads 52 books a year. Warren Buffett reads 104. I talk to most young people, they don't read even 1 book a year, except what they have to study for their courses. So I think by being open, by reading, by traveling, by engaging with people, learning from the janitor, and learning from your professors, and learning from anyone, without looking at them in judgment, oh, this person cannot teach me anything, then your absorption and your understanding of life grows exponentially. And when that happens, because one of my dreams was that I should sit next to the Secretary General of the United Nations. In 8th grade, 9th grade, when our English essay teacher asked us to write an essay about the United Nations, I said, oh, wow, isn't that wonderful? I don't really want to serve any country. Flags don't matter to me, whether they're of India, America, Sweden, Ghana, or wherever. I want to work for the world. I want to work for humanity. And I didn't know that actually that feeling would take me to the top of the United Nations, the 30th floor on First Avenue. And when I was sitting over there, people used to say, Kishore, why are you reading so many books? Why are you traveling so much? You haven't seen a movie. You don't wear a watch. I said, no, because I can tell you the time of the day by looking at the light. And I can tell you within 5 minutes of error whether it is this time or that time. Because then you really come into touch with the elements around you. You are able to feel the vibes of people. You don't read the words of people. And when you can feel vibes, God helps you, luck helps you to navigate, and you flow like water. Things come to you without you seeking them. So I think some of the things which I mentioned, being close to nature, visiting the national parks, cooking, entertaining your friends, setting up a beautiful table, because life is more than just about a job, just about a career. It is about living. It is about living a beautiful life. You live only once. And you have to say, I am going to make the best out of it. I'm not running only the sprint race. I'm not running only the marathon. I'm involved in a decathlon. And I'm running 10 events in the Olympics of life. And in that, it's possible that I will get the gold in one race, I'll get the silver in the second, I'll get the bronze in the third, and in the others, I may not get any medal. But at least I ran. I dreamt. and I enjoyed the process, the journey. And some destinations I reached, the others I did not. I think that's how I have thought about my life. With a lot of details we could go into, which we don't have time to do so, but I think that pushed me. And every moment I took that step, the world unfolded, people unfolded, and joy unfolded. So that's how I can put it. Did I answer your question now?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So as closing comments and remarks to this show, sir, I would like to ask you if you have a hobby or a passion. And the second question would be what message you could give our volunteers here, so that they could live up to that, whatever the aspirations they are looking for.
Hobby and passion. I think there are many hobbies and passion. I think making love is the most fundamental passion. That I think is first. Second is I love to read. Three, I love to play chess. I enjoy sailing. I enjoy swimming. I enjoy skiing whenever it is possible when we were in the cold countries. To be in the outdoors, treks in the mountain and driving across the world. We've driven across many, many countries and enjoying good food of every particular origin and actually doing it with yourself and with your family. So I think actually stimulating all your senses every day, the sense of touch, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the sense of hearing great music, from ancient music to contemporary music, from all countries, religious music, of Islam, of Christianity, of Hinduism, Shiv chants, Gregorian chants, all of that. I think everything, whatever gives you joy, you must do. Silence is a hobby also, but I love to chat and we love to sort of spin a yarn. That also gives you great pleasure. And the one thing I will say is, which I detest, is when people say, "Main desh mein aaya to do sacrifice," I laugh at it. Okay? I don't like to raise slogans. I don't like to sing national anthems. I don't worship the flag. I think one worships life. And whether that is living life or non-living life, whether it's a stone or whether it is a human being. So overall, I feel that the message is love yourself. When you're able to love yourself and enjoy yourself and look after yourself, only then can you do real service. I think that is the central message. Now people say, "Main balidan karne aaya hu. I've come to sacrifice. I gave so much to my country." I don't feel I'm giving anything to my country. Because when you enjoy doing something, you're not sacrificing. If I sacrifice, if people say, "Oh, but you gave so much to your children, etc., you have sacrificed for them, you sent them to the top schools," I said, "No, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel the sacrifice. I enjoyed it. I derived pleasure." So don't become a slave to yourself. Don't become a slave to society. Be a free human being. Flow like water. That is the message I have. Flow like water. How does water flow? It comes out of a spring. It becomes a stream. The stream follows beautiful paths. Lovely flowers go around it. It then suddenly becomes a river. The river becomes a lake. The lake becomes a waterfall. And that becomes the ocean. From the ocean, the water evaporates. It becomes dew. It becomes clouds. Clouds become rain. Rain becomes dew, and the spring starts all over again. And that cycle of water, which I've explained to you, has so many lessons. Because when you become a lake, you're able to see your own image in a beautiful, clear lake, like you see the surrounding mountains in a valley in a lake. Then when you're a stream, you meander. Instead of going... When I was first traveling across America, people said, "Oh, Kishore, how are you going to do it? Why don't you take IAP? It is the fastest route. You can go from Boston to San Francisco in about 4 days. I said, no. I want to take the scenic route. And instead of doing a 3,500-mile journey, I did an 11,000-mile journey, up, down, this way, that way. Where were the best diners? To the old Native American Cherokee and Sioux reservations, the Navajo reservation. You always take the scenic route in your life. So I think if you look at this cycle, you have a lot to learn from nature. It tells you everything. You become still when you're a lake and you reflect the situation around you. When you're a river, you move slowly. In the ocean, you become one gigantic human being who is willing to accept anybody and everybody. So I think once you learn from those particular analogies and you build it into your life and your structure, it's better than reading a book, because everything that's in a book is around in nature, next to you. And as I mentioned earlier, treat every human being as a god. Don't go to the mandirs and the churches. You may wish if you want to, or the masjids, because every human being is a Muhammad, a Jesus, a Shiva, a Durga, a Saraswati. And the moment you don't need to meditate, you don't need to do yoga. God didn't give you a body to sit down for 2 hours and empty your mind. He gave you a mind to think and dream and create. You don't have to do yoga to be subtle. You just walk. Sit in one place. I mean, yes, if you want to do it, do it. It's great. More power to you. But all of these things are not necessary. You just have to enjoy life and live and flow like water, as I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It was very enlightening.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Yeshwant, and thank you, my friend. Hope we meet when I'm driving through America at some point so that we can catch up.
Thank you.